We are.
Oh, hello. Can you hear
Hello,
me now,
everyone.
people?
Can everyone hear the old Frankie? There you go. So, okay. First question, first thing, first order of business here because it's very important. He's so
Okay.
excited. I am very excited. Everyone is excited. By the way, I have a live chat here that I don't believe you can see, but that's okay. I will relay their questions. Everyone says hello. Everyone says how much they love you and how great you are.
I love
First,
them back. I love them back. I hope I could chat back, but I can't. I'm not that technologically advanced. I can't do that.
as far as people that you know, we have Cecil Nix here in the chat. We have the great Veda Scott. I keep pointing. I do. We have the Who, James Nation, Tim. Lots of lovely people. A lot of whom you may have met. I don't know. Okay. First order of business. First thing we have to get out of the way here because it's very
Yeah, go ahead.
important. I'll start by saying for myself. You can call me Speedball. You can call me Mike. You can call me Emil. I really don't care. What are we calling you?
I'll
Are
go
we?
from. I'll use all of the above. I mean, I'll probably use
Yeah.
all of them just to
Okay.
mix it up a
What are
bit to
we
make it
calling
interesting.
you? Frankie the Mobster, the Beast King FTM, just FTM. Should I call you by your, as they say in the
Well, why don't you
business?
call me Mark?
I'll call
I
you
like
Mark
Mark.
by your shoot
Yeah.
name. What if I called you Monsieur
But
Boulanger?
what would you prefer, actually? Maybe to your trillions and zillions of fans, what do you think would be preferable as a name for me to use through the course of this conversation?
Someone suggested Mister the Mobster. We call you Mister the Mobster. So okay, it's on your IMDb. It's on your
Okay,
Wikipedia. Do you mind if I say your real name and its true meaning?
go ahead.
So Marc André Boulanger, and if for those of you who do not speak French, in the chat, Boulanger actually means baker.
Yeah.
So can I call you Baker? Can we call you Ox
Yeah,
Baker?
call me Mr. Baker. I like that. It sounds kind of cool.
Can we call you Ox Baker?
Hogs Baker as well. Yes, like he had the best facial hair in the biz. So,
Right?
and I tried to emulate somewhat, which I actually failed to do completely. But I'm a facial hair kind of guy. So
Yes.
was Ox Baker. So we'll go with Ox Baker through the course of the interview, or talk, or chat.
So you whatever you want to call it. So your facial hair, ever
Yeah.
changing, ever evolving. It's gone through many phases. You rocked a fantastic mustache recently. Can we talk about your
Oh,
mustache?
I am thoroughly. I'm so saddened by the fact that I had to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I was extremely proud of that mustache, and I had grown it. Actually, I'd grown a full beard for a movie I was shooting.
Yeah.
And then I had another thing I had to shoot in which I was to portray a French gangster, but from France. And I wanted something completely different from what I used. So I went with a full on Fu Manchu with a little, like, whatever you want to call it, like a squirrel tail at the end of my chin. And I liked it. I felt really confident with talking to people with that mustache gave me confidence. But it also deprived me of sexual activity with my fiance. So that was a sacrifice I was not willing to commit to. I mean, I like my sex, and I like to have it on a close to regular basis.
As regular as
And
possible,
for
yes.
that, the God stash had to go.
Okay. Now, my favorite Frankie the Mobster facial hair and hairstyle, which was a one-two punch, a 1-2 combo in terms of head hair. I don't remember which movie it was because, as we're gonna talk about,
La
you have an
Ron.
impressive IMDb resume, a very famous Hollywood actor, Marc Andre here. But you had no, hold on. You had a pinch and a
That was
mohawk.
for The Run. It was actually a
Yeah,
French Canadian movie. La Run.
bleached blonde. And that,
Yeah.
my friend, was exciting.
It was not. It was actually. I used to. I like to refer to that hairstyle as atrocious, but
Blasphemy.
it did the job that it was meant to do. I was portraying. Well, it'll be quite the surprise for everyone. But I was portraying a bad guy in a movie. Yeah, yeah. I don't ask me why people see me as a bad person because I try not to be. But there's this visual aspect to me, I think, where people, you know, think I'm a criminal.
It could have something to do with
Am
your
I?
name being Franky the Mobster. Now, however, some business here. We have Andy, the animal, in the chat. Hello, Andy. Thank you for being with
Hello,
us.
Andy.
Love you too.
I like Andy because he's an awesome fucking guy, and also because he reminds me of a song by Lerita Mitsuko called Andy. Great, great song. Which
Dis-moi
for all of
oui,
you out there,
Andy.
go on Spotify and find it. Ooh, Andy, dis-moi oui. Shit, that's pretty much it, but
So
it's much cooler when they do it.
in this promotion that I'm wearing the T-shirt right now, WXW, there is a wrestler called Absolute Andy who came out to
Absolute Andy, I
Andy
like that.
by Lerita Mitsuko, and he is fantastic. So shout out Absolute Andy. Now, I had many questions, many things I wanted
Go
to
and
talk
ask
about.
away.
I feel like
Can
we're
I
just gonna.
ask? Can I
Yes,
before
yes,
you
please,
proceed, if you
please.
don't mind, can I ask you where you got that beautiful sky that you had on in the back before?
From
Is there an app for like Speedball Bailey background,
nope, just go on
something like that where I can find
YouTube
it?
and you type in space background loop, and then you go on one of those YouTube downloader websites and you just put that as a media source in your OBS, and then you can use it on Twitch forever and hope that you don't get sued because it's actually copywritten.
Okay, well we won't talk about it. Forget. Let's put that aside. Okay,
I don't
you don't
think
want
I'm
to.
I don't think I'm anywhere close to famous enough to get like attacked for such, like if I was watching like a movie on my channel, maybe, like I think they have automatic things that detect it. Same thing for
But
music.
if you are making, let's per se, like a review of said movie, I think you would be allowed to do it.
If I wasn't showing the movie, like I'm sure there's rules where like you can show
If
like
you're
small
reviewing the
clips.
movie, if you're making like if you're critique or whatnot, I believe you'd be entitled to playing the movie. It's all copyright bullshit. It's very extremely complicated, especially in the movie industry,
Right.
where I have myself had to deal with people that were illegally downloading the movies I've been in, and it
Yes.
deprived me of rather large amounts of money, the likes of like 17 cents checks and whatnot. I've received a 17-cent check once for royalties for a French Canadian movie. I spent it wisely.
What did you buy? 17 penny candies.
I did not. I'm trying to recall. I think it was like a Bazooka Joe gum. You remember those? I don't know if American
Yes.
people will know that, or
Yes.
UK
Yes. Yes.
people,
Definitely.
or Ukrainian people, or Iraq people, whatever people around the world. I don't know if they will be familiar with Bazooka Joe,
I think
but it
so.
was like this very cheap, disgusting gum that had like a little joke on it, and also a tattoo. I'm old. I have those souvenirs that may come to mind that nobody will understand about, but Bazooka Joe represent. I'm a
I
big
have
Bazooka guy.
confirmation that they do have Bazooka Joe in the United States. Thank you, Kiwi Bird.
Thank
Um,
you.
as I was saying, so many things I want to
Lord.
talk about, many questions that I have, many things that I'm genuinely interested in hearing from you. We've been friends for a very, very long time, and there's a lot of
Absolutely.
things that you would typically ask in an interview because they're like you seek out the most interesting things about a person that I've like never asked you. I don't think. However, we are just going. My thought, my image of
Yeah.
this interview is that we're just gonna go on tangent and tangent and tangent and never get to anything real and just talk about Bazooka Joe comics for like an hour or
I
however long
believe
you
that's
can
what we should do.
be with us. Okay, what was your favorite Bazooka Joe comic? Do you remember one of the jokes? And follow up, do you remember if that joke was funny or not?
Um, I you got me right there because I vividly recall reading those jokes and not finding any of them remotely funny.
No,
But I chewed the fuck out of that gum though.
I think that is part of the fact because like the jokes were written in English and then translated to French
Yeah,
and then
by non-French people.
right, and then like it's the pun is lost. Like sometimes like you can tell this happens a lot if you speak French. You read something in French and you can tell, okay, this was just a pun in English that was translated to French
Yeah,
and it doesn't work. I don't know if you've seen the South Park episode where a prisoner named Hat must be freed.
hat.
Hat.
Okay,
Hat attacked babies or something, and they have to free him. So the whole thing is
okay.
they like there's protests by crazy people who want to free Hat. They want to free the guy named Hat. But then other people are protesting because they think they're gonna get free hats. And
Okay.
in French, the French version of the French translation of that South Park episode, they ask for les bérets gratos.
Libéré gratos?
Wait, les bérets gratos. Des bérets, like a beret, like a hat. Gratos, like French slang for free. Les bérets gratos. Libérés
But that's not
gratos.
really funny.
No, it's not. It doesn't work at all. Horrible.
That's actually a conversation I've had on multiple occasions with my precious fiance.
Yeah.
Because she does not like to watch English movies. She has, like, she understands English, she comprehends it completely, but being French, she likes to make sure that she gets every detail in the movie. But I keep telling her, like, you're not really getting the genuine details. You're taking away from the integrity of the product. I mean, if the movie was made in English, it was meant to be watched in English. And we constantly bicker and fight about that. And she then again threatens me once more to deprive me of sex. So I have to stop arguing, just like I did with the mustache. There's a lot of resignation in this relationship when it comes to my part. And she's a total manipulator when it comes to sexual relationships. And she's very strong about that, which is why I love her, because it's part of her character. She's awesome.
That's like the landmark of a great relationship is using sex as a weapon.
Absolutely, I think it's the basic of a relationship. You need to, yes. And right now she's giving me the dirty eyes.
So we have a question in the chat here that I'm actually interested in hearing. Do Quebec movies get released in all of Canada or mostly stay in Quebec? So, probably about half of the movies you've acted in were French Canadian productions.
I actually would say that I've done more American product that was shot in Montreal than I did French TV. And I did some, like, the movie or the movie and TV culture in Quebec is really strong. There's a big market for it.
So I think that goes along with like the strong sense of, like, if you don't know much about the history of Quebec, there's a lot of it that's about protecting the Quebecois identity.
Oh yeah, we are very protective of our culture,
right? Which kind of
up to a point where it's close to being fanatic.
Yeah.
And they're very narrow-minded.
Yeah.
When it comes on in the movie and TV business, when it comes to exploring other avenues that might, like, slide a bit away from projecting Quebec values and whatnot. If you want to do something that's more of a niche movie or a style movie, you're most likely not going to get funding or budget for it, because if it doesn't really project Quebec values or the Quebec legacy or history or whatnot, you can't get money for it. They're really protective of it.
Right. So, what was the biggest production, the biggest French Canadian movie production, the biggest Quebec movie production you've been a part of, you would say?
I would have to say Bon Cop, Bad Cop 2.
Right. So I remember when Bon Cop, Bad Cop 1 came out.
A few short scenes in there.
Yeah.
On a French Canadian scale, it was huge.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it's like the main actor here in Quebec, Patrick Huard, which I doubt. I think he had a little bit of a run in the States. I know he sold the rights to some of his movies and TV shows in the States. But he's the most respected and beloved actor here in Quebec. And I had a few scenes with him, and they had a very big budget on a Quebec scale for that movie, which I think was close to $9 million.
So I think what was so
compared to an American movie, that's pretty much nothing.
Right.
But the average budget for a French Canadian movie is around $800,000 to $1 million.
Right. So I think the thing that was unique about Bon Cop, Bad Cop, and probably why the two was such a so excited, is because they actually tried to still have it be an intrinsically Quebecois movie, but also be able to broadcast it to the rest of the world, because the movie is it's half French, half English, and if you're watching it in French, then half of the movie is subtitled into French from English. If you're watching it in English, then half of the movie is subtitled anyways, because half of it in French, and they kind of tried to bridge the gap with that. Was that the idea behind the second one as well?
I think they did a good thing out of it, because they reached... Say again?
Was that the idea behind the second one as well?
I believe so, because the they to this day, the first one is the highest grossing Canadian movie of all time.
Wow.
Its successor is Porky.
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 Wow.
I don't even think you do. You know that movie?
Uh,
I didn't even know it was Canadian until I found out that it was the highest grossing Canadian movie after Mon Bacca. But yeah, I think they tried to appeal to a wider audience by using both languages, and they could, explore the American market with it, which they did. I think it had some kind of a little following, but
right.
nothing too extraordinary, but whatever.
So like I want to talk about this, and like your IMDb page is
Yeah.
absolutely wild to see. Um like no, like honestly, seriously, there is not, like, I can say there is not there's not a single Quebec wrestler that has had as much mainstream appeal as you had, that has bridged that gap. And like, as I as we talked about a little bit earlier, I had the honor of being the Pat LaPrade #1 ranked wrestler of the year,
Yeah, you did.
uh,
You're
beating
the
out
man.
beating out the great PCO somehow. But
Yeah,
even like, as if I were the most popular wrestler in Quebec right now,
I believe you are. I firmly believe you are.
thank you. But wrestling is still very small, and like, to go beyond
Absolutely.
that is a huge step. And I think out of everyone in Quebec, you've done that the most. But like, to go back on your IMDb resume, it's really impressive. Like, you've been in a lot of movies that people might know very well. Like, Bad Santa 2 is one that comes to mind. That was like a major production and a huge deal when it came out. Um, what would you say is the role that people around the world know you for the most?
I'd like to say the next one I'm going to do out
Yes,
of
please.
anticipation,
Great.
but I have had a lot of people recognize the work that I've done in Brick Mansions with Paul Walker.
Yes.
That I had a fun scene with him, and the fact that it was the last movie he was able to fully complete before his departure
Right.
makes it kind of special.
Yes.
Is it a great movie? No, it's not. It's fun to watch. It's a little popcorn movie. Having had the chance to work with him and was being given some leeway as to how to interpret this, how to play the scene, I should say, was a lot of fun. And he was a tremendous guy. And the movie did not make monster box office.
No.
Bad Santa 2, I think, would be one of the ones that people saw the most. Um, I I shot for the last two X-Men movies. You see me for the blink of an eye. Um, I think the last movie I shot being Moonfall with Roland Emmerich.
Right.
Um, I have some very powerful scenes in there.
Big Roland Emmerich
And
fan,
I,
by the way. Definitely
and
know who that is and understand how big of a superstar he is. Full knowledge of all of his movies and/or television shows.
Roland is he's, well, to me, when I was a younger guy, I was a really big fan of action, Arnold, Sly, all the muscle heads from the 80s. Yeah,
They
I go
loved
back all the
Roland
way
Emmerich.
back then. And there was this movie when I was in first year I went to high school that came out. I was really, I had high anticipation for it. It was called Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren.
Yes.
And when it came out, it just looked so awesome back in the day. But I didn't get the chance to see it in theater because it was like rated NC-17,
Right.
or what is compared to that here in Quebec.
Mhm.
And I just, when I was doing my research preparing for the part, I didn't even remember Roland Emmerich is the one that did that. He then went on to make movies that are a little more noticeable and remarkable, the likes of Independence Day,
Wow.
The Day After Tomorrow, 2000, is it 2012 with John Cusack? Uh, any movie where the White House gets blown up and the world's about to end,
Yes.
it's Roland Emmerich.
So any good
And
movie is what you're saying.
you're not looking at Academy Award winning movies, but they make money. And in this business, you want to please. I think my view at it is to please as many people as possible with my performance, and being given a stage as big as a Roland Emmerich movie to do so was very pleasant, and I think it's going to work. That movie's going to He's gonna blow up and make major money.
Dale in the chat says his latest movie, Midway, is fire. Meaning it's good.
It's shit.
No, it's good. Fire means good now.
Oh, fire. Okay. I didn't see that one. What is it about?
What is it about? I'm sure we'll get an answer very, very soon.
Please. Who said that? Who
Dale,
said it was fire?
Dale Kilburn. Do you know Dale Kilburn? I'm sure you've met Dale Kilburn.
Yeah, of course,
Yes.
of course. Hello, Dale.
There we go. Shout out to Dale for being an all-around good guy. The Battle of Midway from World War II.
Okay. World War II. Okay. I guess I'll check it out. Do they blow up the White House? Is the question I'm asking.
That is the one question I want to know about every movie. Great. So
every Roland Emmerich movie.
An accountant gets wrongfully imprisoned and is going to escape from jail. Sounds like a nice movie, but does the White House explode?
It has to. I think it's mandatory in a Roland Emmerich movie.
Right. The one very small experience I had with French Canadian cinema is a film called Le Ring, which a bunch
of what?
Le Ring.
Le Ring. Yeah. You worked on that, did you?
Like The Ring, but not like the one with not the horror movie. I wish.
No, I know which one. And you actually, I think it was with one an actor I got to work with on another movie I did after that, Jason Roy-Léveillé.
Yes, that sounds familiar.
Right, I did La Run with him, the movie for which I had the ridiculous mohawk.
Definitely.
I was supposed to be a part of that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and my older brother committed suicide.
Oh.
So focus was not really on making a movie.
No, yes.
I just wanted to.
Completely understandable.
It's that first WWE. I had a first WWE tryout on the same day too. I had to follow up. Well, like the day after, then I was told my brother committed suicide on the same day. So WWE was pushed aside, and so was Le Ring as well. Which Le Ring not being as important as a WWE run would have been.
Right.
But whatever.
But neither are
main
as
focus
important
was family.
Yeah, of course. Neither are as important as your mental health and focusing on.
No, there's nothing more important to me than family. I think you know it. Family, friends.
Connect me if I'm wrong, but this is FTM Marc-André inside knowledge here. But family is so important to you, and so is the blood that runs through your veins, which explains those tattoos that you see on your shoulder.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll see it might be blurry. I look like a total goat or whatever. I have my father's name on my wrist. It says Dennis. And I have my brother's name on my wrist. My brother committed suicide on September 20th, 2006. My father was already sick with lung cancer, and he died on February 4th, 2007. And, I lived through it, and I managed to, how can I put that? I wanted to honor their name, but I wanted to carry them with me, even though I was going to do that, whether it's through tattoos or whatever. They'll always be present in me. But those tattoos represent family. They have their names, and it's veins, so it's the blood of family, like you said, running through my veins. And that's very important to me. If I wouldn't be the man I am, the good parts of me would not exist if it wasn't for family. The bad parts are up to me, but the good parts, the good basic fundamental parts of me are all come from my family.
Well, Ben is here. Shout out to Ben. I was thinking about this as you were saying earlier, and you always get cast as bad guys. And in wrestling, you've been wrestling for how long exactly now? Almost 17, 18 years?
I started in 1997, so it makes it...
Wow.
1996 is when I started training, so it would make it 24 years, give or take.
That is insane. Again, there's so much I want to talk about, but for all the... you've always personified, a very angry, intimidating, usually just a bully, out-of-control, raging character. Right?
Yes.
I don't think
I like to portray that. It's fun.
I don't think you can do that unless you are if you won't be very successful in professional wrestling if you're being a bad person in the ring and that is also who you are as a person. It doesn't work. It only
No, I
works
don't
for
think so.
you because you contrast that in real life. Um,
Yeah.
I know so many people, and like if you need to know about Frankie the Mobster, anything about Frankie the Mobster, about Marc Andre, so many people, if you talk to them about him, will be like, "Oh, he's the best. He's like a big brother to me." Like so many people have a lot of genuine affection for him, and I know that's something that you do on purpose, like be it a flaw or be it a good thing, but you want people to like you, and you like that's normal. That's kind of what makes you a good professional wrestler, right? If that makes sense.
Being nice to people,
More than nice, way more than nice to be, which you
I
are.
I don't think it makes me a good professional wrestler. I I just try to be. I'm always genuine,
Yes.
and I there's a lot. I behave with people the way I feel like behaving. It's never forced.
Right.
People I don't like will feel it.
Right.
If I don't like somebody, if I have a bad vibe or a bad impression about someone, I won't be subtle about it.
Right.
But I generally get along with everybody. I don't think that makes me a good rest. I think it just shows that how can I put this? I don't think I have an ego
Yeah.
or like I don't think I'm hot shit in any way because I'm not. I mean,
So
I
I'll interrupt you for a second. I don't think
yeah
having an ego is bad. I don't think having an image of yourself that you want to uphold when you're pro wrestling is necessarily a bad thing at all. And I'm sure I know that you have an ego. I know that about you, and you have an ego in a completely positive way. In that
okay
every time you wrestle, you know what you want the outcome of the match to be like. And I know that from wrestling you. I know
yeah
that how badly you want the match to be good. I know how badly you want to give everyone the most out of your performance, and I think you do need some ego in order to do that. If you didn't have any sort of ego, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't be
I
so
understand what
hard
you're saying.
on yourself, and you wouldn't be so insistent on having every Beast King match give the
Yeah.
impression that it does.
No, I guess I have to agree with you on that aspect. I do have an ego when it comes to what I'm projecting. I'm very hard on myself,
Yes.
but I try not to be hard on others, and just I'm very open with like having people that I don't have. I'm very open minded when it comes to visions about this business, to approaches that people might have. I or the way they structure their careers and their lives around the business. I think that is an element that's lacking in many people in our business.
Right.
People will just look at it from the way they were brought up or what they have learned and the way they do their shit.
Right.
Um, and on a human aspect, I try to be the same, where I don't judge people. I just don't. No, I do judge people because everybody does. That's
Right.
human nature to judge.
So
Everybody will. But I don't build relationships or friendships with people according to my first impression.
right.
I always try to get to know people before I can decide whether they're good or not. I never listen to word of mouth, and I think that you going back to saying I'm a good professional. I think I'm a good person to have in a promotion for balance,
Yes.
to keep people like level minded and don't let egos get out of the way because I don't tolerate it.
Right.
I don't like people to have bad attitudes, and I try to. Not that I should take that responsibility on my shoulders, but most times I do. If
Yes.
some people are out of line, I'll try to just put them back into place.
Yes.
And I guess people don't take offense to that or don't feel attacked or insulted because I'm a nice guy who doesn't look for trouble. So I'll wind up being in a lot of situations where I'm between two people having a shitload of problems, and I have to handle it being the middleman on a lot of people, especially in Quebec wrestling.
So I've like witnessed that with you a little bit, and I've like experienced that around you, not to me personally, but I've seen it happen. And I don't think, because you are who you are, no one comes out angry, and everyone. This is the most fascinating thing about Frankie the Mobster backstage in a wrestling show, is that everyone has so much respect for you that you're like, you have the right to keep the peace, and when you check people and put them back in their place, they're like, "Oh, you're right. Sorry. Thank you."
Uh,
But I think someone asked before we started talking, how do you deal with carnies s in
Older
professional wrestling?
people?
And my was that so my
Ah,
answer to that was just that if you're polite and genuine and talk to people like you would like to be talked to, like that's not really an issue, and you really don't have to deal with that. And that's something I get from you, where you're always genuine. I
yeah.
don't think I've ever said this to you. But I don't. Have I ever told you about the first ever time we met?
I don't recall. No, I don't think you
No.
have.
Okay. So my brother, who is a few years older than me, was already wrestling. So I was
Yes,
like,
yes,
I
I
don't want
left
to
you.
say like wise to the business, but I understood wrestling, and
Yeah.
he was trying to get a booking, or just came to talk to the promoter at an FLQ show, and I kind of just came along with him to see the show, and I just like,
Yes.
I didn't want to, knowing that I wanted to be a wrestler eventually, I didn't like act
Okay.
out during the show, except when you came out during your entrance. And
Okay.
very, very like early. Oh, thank you for the Prime subscription, Jackie Daytona. Very early in your entrance, like you just looked in my way, and I just like, woo, this guy wants to interact. And then we kind of yelled at each other for a
Okay.
while you were fully in
I don't
character.
recall that.
No, I don't think I'd ever told you this, but
Okay.
like, I got the sense like that was kind of striking to me in terms of what is wrestling, and having seen it on TV a lot, but not having like experienced it live, seeing what it
Okay.
does, just the way you took this one, just like 14-year-old kid that was sitting there and didn't like have it in mind, "Oh, I want to be part of the show, I want to interact," and just started yelling at me, and then I went back, and it was an amazing time. um
Okay. Well, that's what matters the most to me, I think.
I know, absolutely. And if there's anything I've taken from watching you wrestle, is how important it is to have like impact on every single individual. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something like that is a very important part of your wrestling.
Absolutely. I that's like I think that's my primary thing, especially after all this time. I am not in wrestling like it's cool to get them, but to receive accolades from the business people. Being told that this guy's a great worker. It's I like when people say, people in the industry, people I've worked with will say, "Oh, working with Frankie is easy." That's the nicest compliment you can give me. But it's not easy, as in, we're not going to struggle and we're going to work hard, but it'll be smooth. The focus will be on the right things. Emotions are going to be valid. For myself, when I drive these countless hours in shitty cars and feel like a fucking 95-year-old man when I wake up in the morning, all that doesn't matter to me because of that magical moment that I get when I cross the curtain and I see a kid, a 6-year-old kid, a full-grown adult, an older man who has that vibrant emotion in his eyes because he's linked to the energy that I'm projecting, and he provides me right back. He feeds it right back to me. That chain of emotion that you can create with the live crowd, or even when you're on TV, it's the same thing. I do this to be able to play with people's emotions, right? Raise their emotions, make them like feel something like viscerally, organically, and I feel it right back. When that connection works, after a show finishes, I make it. And I do not make it. It's not an obligation because I don't feel obligated to do it. But it just comes naturally for me to go and reach out to people, see if some of them want an extra little moment, if they want their kids to take a picture, if they just want to chat. Because whether it be on a grander scale, I say much like the WWE, AEW, I'm sorry, anything in Japan, if not from the people that pay their hard-earned money to watch us, we don't fucking exist. That I'm not saying everybody should share that vision or that approach, but that's mine, and it will never change.
I completely agree. Mark Wheeler is in the chat, and he says he remembers seeing you at the first time ever at a C4 show, and he was so into seeing you enter the ring because of your presence that he's been a big fan ever since. And like that's again
Well,
back to what I said. That's how every single person feels about you. I don't mind saying this on a podcast because it's like I think Shawn Michaels who said it in an interview or a book. But this is like a piece of advice that I give out to everyone in like probably the
yeah,
number one thing I say in when I do seminars and wrestlers ask me for advice, which is about eye contact, right? And if you're selling, if there's a big moment and you want to get a reaction from the audience, find one person in the crowd, look them directly in the eye, and
yeah,
show them that you need their help. And then if that one person is cheering, then all the 8 people around that one person, they start cheering as well. And if those 8 people cheer, then the 36 around them cheer. I think I have my math right here. 36 around them cheer, and that's how you get a whole arena going. I
absolutely.
think that's what you're a master at in terms of pro wrestling,
Yeah,
making that connection with one person and then building off of that. Um,
yeah.
and also, for as big of a character and as intense and angry and scary as you are when you wrestle, you've always been extra kind to the audience and given them like what they wanted and really going the extra mile to make people want to come back to a professional wrestling show.
I think it's important. I like it goes back to what I just said. I mean, if these people won't come back, neither do we.
Exactly.
And I like to see people. I might be an ego. I don't think I'm anything special, but if they get something that they feel is a special moment of talking with me, of exchanging with me, well, I'm glad and I'm ecstatic to be able to provide that because it puts a smile on their face and brings a little magic to their life. I look at myself as somewhat of an emotional magician. I want to make people happy by bringing magic into their lives.
So, yeah, that's the magic of pro wrestling, and that's what I like about this platform. Also, Twitch, just the fact that I've been able
Yeah,
to like connect with so many people directly, like having conversations with them through the chat, and like we're able to all share that right now, and I think that's wonderful. I listened to in preparation for this interview because yes, I did that. I watched your interview with Ringsiders, and I must say,
yeah, that was
Ringsiders.
fun.
I did their podcast too, and it was really great. So shout out to them. And I must say that I am very offended. I am angry. I am peeved because when you did their interview, you did a very
Yeah.
brave thing, and you had no shirt on the whole time.
Okay, so because I have a shirt on, you're offended.
Yes,
That you should have said that. What do you think?
thank you. That is all I wanted. I think that's all everyone wanted in the chat. Someone earlier, when we were watching your match with the great Space Monkey from Greektown, someone commented that you
I
were
love him.
a big Mama Jama. Mama Jama? Mama Jama? Would you describe yourself as one big Mama Jama?
I, for myself, would not use the term Mama Jama. I think I'm a fairly decent sized anti heroic interpreter.
Wow.
Or
Okay.
big ass juice monkey motherfucker.
So, again, one of the reasons I was really looking forward to this chat, one of the many reasons, is because usually, and I know in your interviews, I know that's a thing that happens very often, where you have to say like, "Oh, I'm pronouncing this wrong. I'm sorry. My English is sometimes
Yeah.
there's some words, but French is both our first languages, and I do it all the
Yes.
time. I will pronounce words like pronounce instead of pronounce, like you're supposed
Pronounce. You will
pronounce. That happens
pronounce?
all the time. Yes, like half the time when I try to say video. I'll say video, video, video,
Phil,
video.
Phil.
Yes. Another great word that I've been stuck pronouncing very often because of Diablo 2, the computer game, is barbarian.
Barbarian.
Barbarian, yeah.
It's pretty hard.
Say it, please.
Barbarian.
Barbarian. That's how you're supposed to say it. No, I just go
Yeah,
barbarian.
but the thing is, I love that word, barbaric. I think it's such a very powerful adjective. See, I fucked it up.
You're right. Adjective. That's another hard one. Adjective.
Adjective. How do you say it? Adjective?
Adjective? No.
Adjective?
Adjective. You stress out the
Fuck
A
that.
at
Let's just say word.
Right?
I can't say it.
So I was talking about this earlier, but I want to talk about it with you. I
Go
went
ahead.
to Singapore, and Singapore
Yeah.
is like in a lot of ways much like Quebec is hold on, my camera just
I can't see you anymore. I see the universe.
Give me just 1 second. I will be right.
Yeah. I wish I could interact with the people watching, but I do not see your questions, nor your words. If you have any, write them down, and I'm sure my. Oh, he's back! Awesome.
Okay, I'm back, and hopefully I can edit this out of the.
No, don't leave it. It's amazing.
You think so? Okay, I will. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, when I went to Singapore, and Singapore, much like Quebec, is born of like a lot of different like ethnicities, right? There's a lot of people with Chinese origin, Malaysian, and many other in Singapore. But English is the official language.
Okay.
And they speak Singaporean English, which
sounds like what?
English with a very heavy. I don't know. I'm just saying this. I don't know for sure. With a very heavy Chinese accent. That's how it would sound if you don't know that it's Singaporean English. But they fully embrace it.
Okay, good.
They fully embrace it as Singaporean English, and that made me realize that I was probably wrong to think of like because of my accent, I just don't speak English properly. Instead of going, nope, this is Quebecois English.
We're French Canadian English speakers. I understand what you mean.
Right.
Yeah. But I, for myself, have to work on it extra hard because if you're shooting movies and TV and whatnot, you can't have le Quebecois accent. It don't work because it don't sound American.
Yes.
When you speak with la cabane à sucre and la soupe au pois and the ceinture tressée and les Canadiens Montréal, you can't speak like that.
Yeah,
it won't work. And I've been told that many and the earlier editions that I've had to go, you got to work on your accent. I'm like, what's wrong with my accent? You're like, well, sometimes it's kind of Frenchy. Well,
right.
I'm French.
You have to be able to get through your lines without saying
"ça
sent la coupe."
I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to say those words.
Because it doesn't.
Those are hockey-related terms, and I think you of all people know how much I despise Montreal Canadian fans.
So same, because it's been so like forced down on us since we were kids. I got so mad one time. I think it was one specific year. Georges Saint-Pierre was like UFC welterweight champion. The Impact won their division. The Alouettes had won the Grey Cup. Yet on the front page of every sports page of the newspaper was, oh, the Montreal Canadiens are losing again.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about it then?
I am appalled by the idiocracy of the Quebec population. It's not they're being idiots. I want to take that back because it's really insulting. But we've mentioned earlier how protective of their culture French Canadian people are. And it's almost like it's a religion for them to follow the evolution of the almighty Canadians.
Yes.
But then again, we'll talk about Montreal people doing that with the Canadians or Quebec people doing that with Canadians. You go to New York, I think people most likely do it with the Yankees. You go to the United Kingdom or they'll do it with soccer or football teams.
Jackie Daytona in the chat before like 5 minutes before you said it pointed out that it's exactly the same with the Yankees. I'm sure it's the same with every like place that has one major sports franchise that just drowns out everything else.
Absolutely, it has to be. But what I dislike, and I can understand passion. I can relate to passion.
Yeah.
But the fact that our population here in Quebec is emotionally, as a whole, affected by the wins or losses of a sports team
Right.
is fucking depressing.
It is.
I think it's mind boggling. And because it's not that big of a culture, the French Canadian culture, and because we nurture it so much, there's constant brainwashing about the values and the attachment that is like dictated to the common people of Quebec, like that they should follow the Canadians because it's the local team. And media's work a really big role, play a big, really big role in that. But when people here in Quebec talk about the Canadians winning a game, they don't say, "Oh, they won." They say, "We won." That is the
Yeah.
most abrasive way to me to talk about a sports
They say
franchise.
we won and then they lost.
Absolutely,
It's never we lost
always.
though. Um,
Because they don't lose. What I feel is that most of the people that get attached that strongly to a sports team or any other franchise is, in most times, and I don't mean to be dismissive or disrespectful, but most times it's the common man that has never himself, man or woman, that has never himself or herself accomplished anything he can feel proud of.
right.
So he needs that feeling of belonging, that feeling of accomplishment. So that's why he so desperately emotionally attaches himself to a team and says that we won, because through their achievements, their positive one, of course, he feels accomplished himself and he feels fulfilled. But when they lose, no in hell he's going to be part of that. So that's not. It should be a two-way street. I mean, if you guys lose, you guys win. I mean, you should lose with the team too. But that's like a fanatic mentality that I can't bear it. Even not just in sports, with politics as well. I'm not going to get into a debate about politics.
Yes.
I because I'm not, in all honesty, don't pay that much attention. Uh, but in the past year, you had no choice but to pay attention because that's all we could fucking read or talk about or see in the media. But I like when people lose their shit about oh I'm gonna heat for that, but whatever. Um, some fucking blonde bleached dipshit with a toupee who tweets when he's the most powerful man in the free world. I think it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. No.
I don't want to attack. Like,
I don't think anyone
go
here
ahead.
is gonna fault you for that. Um, but yeah. So I this is something about wrestling that I
Yeah,
try
I
to
got
do.
away from wrestling a bit
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'm
But
sorry.
that's okay. I'll bring it back. I like to avoid the word fans, and
I don't. Yeah, you're right.
I prefer to refer to them as the audience. In
Yeah,
Japanese, the word for whoever is watching pro wrestling, they just call them customers, which is a lot more closer to what
customers.
they are.
I have that approach too. I
Yeah,
have the approach too.
fans kind of implied that you're like a fanatic, and most of the time,
Yeah,
like I think it's a mistake in wrestling to assume that whoever is watching you likes you, and the right approach is to assume that they don't, and then no matter where or who you are, always try to win them over. Because if you're wrestling for people that already like you, then congratulations, you've won. It doesn't matter. So it's way more important to
yeah.
wrestle for the people that may not know you or may not know wrestling, and try to win them over. And I think that's a lot more important. And I wish we could do away with the word fan in general. I think it's demeaning. Anyone who says marks and still uses that terminology
I
can,
despise that utterly.
yeah,
I can't do it. I never have, and I never will.
yeah.
It is fucking disrespectful.
Ben says
And to
supporter.
me, it's a
That makes a
term
lot more
that should be
sense.
applied to people within the business that
Right.
think they know more than they do.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the, like you said, the paying customer.
So I
They're
think
not
there was
marks.
there was a big shift in professional wrestling because once upon a time it really was for some people, not everyone, but it really was like, oh, you're trying to pull one over on them. But I think like the way you and I have always approached professional wrestling is we're gonna try to create art and sell that
Yeah,
art to people, and then people will buy.
absolutely.
Well, like it's a completely fair and equal level transaction where I
Yes.
put out good art and then you like pay for it and show your support. And I think Ben is right. Supporter is a great word, especially for I think smaller promotions as well. Like it's weird calling things fans or assuming that anyone is a fan of you, and I don't know why we still do that.
No, I like it. I agree. My take on it is customer or people I get to know. I'll just call them friends.
Yes,
I have a lot of friends in the wrestling audience
yes,
because you and I. It might sound ludicrous to say it, but I think ultimately what you want to try to create is a relationship with every single person. If you come, if people come to think of you as a friend, okay, I might in certain cases be awkward, but I personally have a lot of friends and I've built a lot of relationships with amazing human beings that I've met through wrestling by performing for them. And ultimately, I dislike tremendously performers that, like you said, speak negatively of the fans and just disrespect them by not wanting any contact other than just, the people's money in their pockets from buying their merch.
yeah. And I think that breeds a bigger appreciation for pro wrestling and just how difficult it is. Like that's something
Yeah,
I talk about a lot, and it's a big rant that I've been doing pretty much every day for the last several weeks because it's topical and it's very close to me. Um, like how people don't understand how pro wrestling is beautiful because it's multifaceted, right? Because there's a lot
yeah,
of different aspects to it, and that's also what makes it so incredibly difficult. So like
yes.
it makes my blood boil every time I hear one person say, "Oh, it, the reason pro wrestling is suffering, the reason the pro wrestling industry is not doing as well as it should is because wrestlers cannot do this one simple thing." And they're always wrong.
It's true. It's true. The thing is, you can't talk about this business and talk about one simple thing
Right.
because it's not one simple thing. You just said it. There's so many aspects of it, and I don't think that anyone has ever mastered every aspect of the
No,
business,
absolutely not.
even the all-time greats.
Right.
There's always something they could have done better. They will have a fuller, complete package, maybe, or will be better at many more things combined than others. But you can't talk about just that's one thing. Like Jim Cornette, as highly intelligent and knowledgeable as he is a complete fucking tool. He's a bitter old man whose knowledge is so wide he could use it to enlighten so many people if he didn't have all that rage inside him and all that deception and all that bitterness and people like him who bitch about the good old days. I'm obviously not the person in the wrestling business that has the most experience, but I've been doing this fairly long. I could talk about my good old days, but I don't. I mean, I value them. I treasure my good old days, but I'm still going full tilt. And these present days are just as valuable. And I learn from everybody that I meet, whether he has 20 years of experience or 6 months. Anybody can teach me something.
So I sometimes I catch myself looking at Jim Cornette stuff and thinking, "Oh, he's smart. He's a pretty good businessman. Like he knows how to get people on his side." And like that makes me like kind of okay, I see what he's doing. But then what it always becomes a little bit like racist or homophobic, and that's when I just get
Yeah,
completely off and I'm like fully turned off by him, and I can't do it. I can't do it. Um
he's talked shit about some very dear friends of mine.
yeah.
Uh, whether it be Kevin or Sonny
Yeah.
or Sami Zayn. Kevin and Sonny, more importantly, he's badmouth both of them,
Yeah.
and the shit he said about Sonny Kiss was just
Yeah. Awful. Awful.
outrageous.
Awful. Absolutely despicable.
I and it's been said. I think Mike Tyson said it the best. Social media,
Yes.
social media has provided a platform for people to say shit that they should normally get punched in the face for.
Right. I want to talk though. It's a good time to talk about because it's something I absolutely think is interesting. But Kevin and Sammy, and
Yeah,
something that I've talked about on briefly here, but I really want to get deeper on with you because you were way closer to it than I was. But Quebec wrestling and like its history, where it was Quebec wrestling, like wrestling in Canada is something I want to talk about a lot more as well in a bit. So I'm hoping I don't forget that. But wrestling in Quebec is even more isolated because of the language barriers and everything was
yeah.
absolutely huge in the
Oh
70s,
yeah.
80s, early 90s. Do you have any like memories of that? Were you around wrestling then? So I
Not
was born
really.
in
In all honesty, not really. In all honesty,
yeah.
I got like wrestling from TV. There was French versions of WWE. We had a French version of NWA, and that's what I watched. I didn't really pay that much attention to NWA. I was really a big WWE guy, and I would watch it weekly, like religiously. But the local scene, as a kid, I didn't pay attention, and I guess had I known, I would have.
Right.
I
So
would have went to a bunch of live shows. All I ever went to were house shows for WWE house shows at the Forum,
yeah.
and after tapings at like the at the Motion Center in
Yeah.
Bell Center. Local stuff that I got to see was only after friends of mine, being Black Eagle and who's still active on the pro circuit
He
in
absolutely
Quebec after all
is.
these time. A guy I started with, phenomenal human being,
Mhm.
great guy that I love with all my heart. And Raiden, who was my, yeah, he was called Raiden, but he was my tag team partner at the time when I started
God of
out.
Lightning, yes.
He was not, no, he, he just liked the name.
Good enough.
Steven, let's call him Steven for the sake of the interview. He was another. If not for him, I would have never gotten into wrestling
Right. So
because he
I
took like wrestling class from an older man whose name, and I've had to mention this in multiple interviews or whatever, totally evades me. I have no idea what the man was called, um, nor where he might be today if not in a coffin.
Right. So
But
I was born in 1990, so I have absolutely no connection to Mad Dog Vachon and all that. I have great respect for them and everything, but I have
yeah,
no connection to that. And I know that like once that wasn't a thing, once the big wrestling boom had stopped, between then and like the beginning of social media, where the only way to advertise wrestling wasn't big anymore, and the only way to advertise your show was to stick the flyer to a telephone
the
pole,
fucking flyers on the
which
telephone
so
pole.
you wrestled for like 10 years between like when that was happening and there was no Facebook and nowhere to advertise your shows. Started
When
in
I really started out in '96, the
96.
internet was just in its puberty. And the very notion of having a website to promote your activities before social media was not even the simple idea of having a website to promote your shows was
Yes.
not even thought
Yes.
of. But
So Lloydro in the chat says he feels now there's a taboo about Quebec wrestling. Everyone is surprised when he says he likes wrestling and everyone is really judgmental about it. I then show them stuff about wrestling and they're like, "Oh, it's not like what I thought." Yeah, that's a recent thing. That's something that like I think probably 2006, 7, 8 is when
yeah,
wrestling like started to get on the internet and then people could see it on there and realize that it's good. However, something that I know you were like right there for and definitely like a big part of it is what changed everything for the way I see it, what changed everything for Quebec wrestling, which is guys like you mostly Kevin and Sammy were a big part of this. Sexy Eddie, El Generico. Like I remember EWR booked in Chris Daniels to wrestle
Yeah.
Kevin, and then Steve Corino. I don't remember which came first.
Daniels came first.
But yeah, that was a huge deal for Quebec. And then like
Absolutely.
from that match, people knew how good Kevin was, and then they started actually bringing in people to wrestle like people from Quebec, and that really like opened the door and allowed people from talent to actually have a goal and to start thinking, I might be seen and I might actually get a chance to perform elsewhere. Which
Hmm.
I know that around the time you were coming up, like the feeling was, and it kind of that was going away because I started in 2006, which was right when like Kevin had just wrestled Christopher Daniels, and people were starting to see that maybe indie wrestling was a way people could go. In Quebec, you
Yeah.
were told basically, oh, you might get signed if you're really, really, really good, but probably not, and then nothing will happen with wrestling.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you had coming up?
I the when I started wrestling in '96 and '97, when I was first doing the shows, a crappy promotion out of Battlefield, and then I went on to start with NCW, Northern Championship Wrestling,
Yeah,
which has a very long history.
yeah, they're still running right now. Well, not right now,
Yeah,
but
and
they were before the
we
pandemic.
there's a group of us younger guys, being Chase Ironside, Shakal, Black Eagle, that started back in the day. You worked for one promotion if you were in Montreal, and me and
Which
all the
means you only
boys,
got to
all four
wrestle
of
like
us, went
less than once a
through
month.
a bunch of different promotions.
Yeah,
But that was like unheard of, and we were younger, and we weren't. But we got the respect from everybody. We eventually won.
right.
To this day, I have older like wrestlers from Quebec who never liked me, who were total fucking assholes to me when I started out because I was a skinny kid,
Yeah,
and they come over, well, hey man, how you doing? Like we're old buddies and whatnot. And for what it's worth, I don't waste energy trying to be a dick. I just, let bygones be bygones, and I'm because they seem genuinely happy to see me because they haven't amounted to shit, and they are probably very unhappy not to be able to perform, to live that special moment in their lives. So if they, it brings them back to their younger days to meet someone who they knew back then. I'll make sure to be nice to them. But I totally lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
the history of Quebec
The
wrestling.
evolution about, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. We, like, it was ludicrous to think when I started out, I was talking to all the guys, all the people that I worked with, like, I'm not doing this to perform in little arenas in Quebec and Montreal. That's always been my philosophy. But if you're in this business and you look at it as a way to just have fun, fine. But to the fan, what you should aspire to project is a guy who dreams about being on TV.
right.
If you look like a guy going, I'm very content with performing in front of 75 people in a church basement. I think people down the like genuine people that really truly appreciate our industry will see through the facade and go like, he's not worth investing in emotionally because he doesn't care that much for it.
Right.
If you're in this business and you don't want to go further with it, and your aspiration is not to be like looked upon and respected by everybody worldwide, I don't think everybody can do that. Obviously not.
Right.
But if you don't aspire to be one of the best of all times in anything that you fucking do in life,
Yeah.
then don't fucking do it. Especially an activity or a business that relies on people that pay their money to watch.
Yes.
I mean, if you play hockey with your friends on the weekends, I say hockey because we're
Yeah.
obviously it's the first thing that comes to mind here in
Because that's
Quebec.
the most popular
If you,
sport to do on the weekends.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Here.
and if you do that with your buddies and you have your regular job and you don't want to be the best hockey player in the world, that's fine. You go with your buddies and you have fun. Nobody cares because nobody watches your fucking games.
Yeah.
If you're performing in front of a live crowd that has invested their money, you should want to be the absolute fucking best. You
Right.
should be the one that people talk about when they leave.
Yes.
Not necessarily saying, "Oh my God, did you see that movie?" Didn't or not. You just want them leaving, like that will come off as being arrogant. I don't think it is. I'm just trying. When people see you or they see me, when they step out, they finish the show, they walk out, they won't be like, "Oh, you remember that? Did you see that move that Bailey did or that move that Franky did?" No, they're like, these fucking guys were awesome because of the general complete package that we brought and our dedication and love for our craft.
So something I know that
So
you
when I
don't.
started out, nobody believed in that, and they all were just satisfied with being little French Canadian players. But the fact that Daniels was brought in, then Carino, and then a barrage of American talent came in on a monthly basis, really gave on an international like level a lot of exposure to the local talent. Not all of it, and that's a good thing, but the most talented people were able to pull through and get exposure elsewhere, and it actually led one of these guys to become Universal Champion of WWE.
Yeah, one. Yeah, but two of those guys to appear regularly on television as. But
Absolutely.
and since then we've had a lot of like uh, Quebec talent or
Yeah,
like
with
close
tryouts
to
and
Quebec.
whatnot.
Yeah, but do great and have like successful careers as professional wrestlers. One thing that I know, Frankie, that you do not realize about yourself at all.
I'm going to be lectured now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, go.
It is just how no, but I'm serious. Just how serious you are. So I did. The friend of mine, his name is Ginger Pimpernel on Twitch, and he hosts a
Ginger what?
Ginger Pimpernel is his name on Twitch.
Oh, well, hello, Ginger Pimpernel. Did I get it right?
You can just call him Ginger Pimp. People call him that for short.
Ginger
Um,
Pimp. I like that. That sounds
regardless,
cool, actually.
he had me on as a guest booker. Do you know Fire Pro Wrestling? No. Okay, that's fine.
I,
It's a
I could look into it. It doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry if
regardless.
that's offensive.
It's a wrestling video game, but it's
Okay.
fun because you can like there's a online you can get basically every single wrestler in the game, right? You can play
Okay.
as and someone just pointed out Frankie is in Fire Pro. You are in fact in Fire Pro Wrestling, and we did. I was guest booker on there, and I put you in a match with Braun Strowman.
Oh my God.
But so Ginger is from Scotland. He is Scottish, and he has people. He had people in the chat from all around the world, so many different countries, and everyone knows who you are. Everyone around the world,
I don't believe that a fucking second.
wrestling fans that I've spoken to in Japan about you know who you are, and I know
That's impossible because I've never had any contact with Japan people.
you. They don't need to be in contact with you to be aware and fans of you. So you wrestled mostly in Canada. You've done some work in the United States. That's pretty much it country wise for now,
I
right?
did one shot with PWG. I did the Jersey All Pro,
Yeah,
CZW, mostly the
you did a lot of CZW,
Northeast, like American
right?
territories. I did the what was that promotion in Providence that we went to for which I cut a terrible promo
Beyond
with
Wrestling,
you,
that was
Bucks,
Beyond
and
Wrestling.
DDT.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an awful promo.
yeah, it was
I
terrible.
got noticed. Yeah,
However, like people really know who you are, and I think it's because despite not having wrestled in that many different places, you always stood out tremendously. Like what you were saying earlier about if you want to make it, you really have to set yourself apart and look like someone who belongs on TV and belongs on the big screen, which is what you're doing now. Like that's what you've always done tremendously well.
thank you. I guess for everybody. Then thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Um, So I know that for you, Kevin Steen was like, and for me as well, like a lot of, I don't want to say help for you. He was definitely just help for me. Like I learned a lot from him, but you guys really came up together and you pushed each other for a while, despite not having many matches together.
We cannot have matches together. We just
Why?
can't. Kevin mentioned it in an interview, I think on multiple occasions. Kevin and I are like brothers, and when
Yes.
and he brought, I was mostly an NCW mainstay and other bitty little promotions outside of the province. In Montreal, there was this big bidding war of promotions. That's when Kevin was starting out with IWS and other, like you couldn't work, if you worked for IWS, you could not work for NCW. That was completely out of the question.
Right.
And me being able to work and bond with Kevin led me there, led me to go to work for IWS
Right.
and create a friendship that goes beyond friendship to this day. And we pushed each other's buttons, not only in the wrestling business, and that's what I think helped us so much. We pushed each other as human beings.
Yeah.
We helped each other out with life. I mean,
Right.
I I've, I have many friends. There are a few friends I would give my life for, and Kevin is one of them. If I if he had trouble tomorrow across the border without a passport, without it being legal for me to do, I would not care.
Right.
I'd go straight there and I would figure a way to help him.
Yeah.
Um, Kevin has helped me tremendously in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I've had like inspiration issues. Well, you've helped me tremendously as well. You know
Thank
that
you.
my confidence goes down the drain very
Yes.
often, and you've been very helpful for that. Kevin has been too. I have not managed my life to the best degree, I'd say, in the past, give or take 5 years.
Okay.
I've had some major issues that are close to being completely dealt with. Now, I know people are going to wonder what I'm talking about.
That's fine.
I don't want to. I'll let you speculate. I'm not. I don't. I can honestly say I don't think I did anything bad to anybody. I
Right.
can do that. I can say that. I've never been
So
mischievous or mean or bad to anyone.
I
I've only been like a moron to myself.
I look at the IDBS, right? So on here we watched El Generico versus Excess from back
Okay.
in the day, IWS, and it's like a absolutely insane bonkers match. Like the kind of match that anyone who like thinks they know anything about pro wrestling would be like, "Oh, this is no good. This doesn't make any sense." And a lot of it didn't, even from my point of view. But like the audience there absolutely loved it, and like one of the two guys in the match like is one of the most recognizable faces in on television in terms of professional wrestling, and the other one went on to have a long, great, successful career. And when I look at that, like in the IWS, like the way I look back on it, which is a little bit before I started wrestling, still a few years, like guys just pushing each other super hard
Oh
to
yeah.
like create something that was different and unique. And like you were definitely part of that. Sexy Eddie was definitely part of that. I think the Green Phantom was part of that. Uh, Kevin again, XS El Generico,
Yeah.
all PCO even became part of
Yeah.
that, and he helped Kevin and Generico when they had the three-way match very specifically that like pushed their career along greatly, and they
Oh
both
yeah.
learned a lot,
It
a
really
great deal
helped them
from.
blow up. Okay, Carl is like a phenom in a way that
Absolutely,
he's a freak. He's a freak of nature,
absolutely.
and I to this day, even though he's recognized around the world right now as being a huge Ring of Honor superstar, I still don't think, as sadly as it is, that throughout the world he's looked upon as a great star, but back home, I don't think he's given the recognition he
I
deserves.
agree. So when he did his match, after he did his match at Final Battle for Ring of Honor at the end of last year, I made a tweet and talked about how like he's been representing Canada on a world class level for nearly 40 years.
Yeah,
30 years? I don't remember. Some like maybe
30
nearly 40
years
years.
at least. At least
Something
30 years.
some completely like mind-blowing absurd number, and it's not like he's been like half-assing it for the last 20. No,
No,
he still goes hard. And he does like a like
it's
yeah,
he's insane.
he's insane and it's fantastic, and it's
Yeah,
uh, like what you and I'm pretty sure hope to do with professional wrestling to be able to
yeah,
represent the scene here for so long. Something that has been like in online a very big discussion was it's about the discussion itself is specifically about Canadian wrestling. And it certainly applies to Canadian wrestling, but I think it's a bit bigger than that. I think it applies to every like country that is smaller or isolated, but how. So Black Dynamite, Jeremy Prophet has been very vocal about that as well recently in a lot of interviews. But just how hard it is to be a Canadian wrestler, and how like I find a lot of wrestlers don't get a fair shake compared to American citizens when it comes to getting
Yeah,
contracts with
yeah,
American
for sure.
companies.
With the visa being a big issue,
Big issue.
yeah,
Yes, as I know very well, big issue. Um, yeah, but yeah, just visibility as a whole, and like Canada has a rich history when it comes to professional wrestling, which helps it. Like people are aware of it as a thing, and I'm compared to, for example, Singapore, which I talked about before, where they barely no one knows what pro wrestling even is, and one of the promotion there that I worked for really had to start from the ground up and completely build it up, like teach people what pro wrestling is, and then get them invested into it. But so the question comes with Canada. The argument sort of started when it comes saying like someone on the internet said, if you're not like if your goal is to be signed with a major company and you're not, that's on you. You gotta work harder, which is kind of a poor choice of words to say to people that are in Canada. Where right now,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So he wasn't saying it specifically about Canadians. He was saying it in general to try and motivate people, which is fine. That's his prerogative. Um, but is there anything you think about Canada that needs to change, or is there any way that you think we could help that? Because you and I, we know a lot of wrestlers that have been like super successful and
Yeah.
are currently unable to go to the U.S., and that is what is holding their career back because
Yeah.
they should have contracts with major companies.
Well, the visa is always going to be a
It's
bitch,
always going to be an issue. Yes,
and it was way easier back in the day before 10, like September 11.
that's true. Yes,
That really
which by the way,
drastically changed everything.
only you and PCO would know about that.
I know, but it's been way more difficult and complicated. Like all the paperwork and the verifications, understandably,
Yes.
that have now been established. Um, but it's funny you mentioned Prophet because I spoke with him on his podcast about this.
Yeah.
Um, it is way more difficult for us because of that restraint. When it now, I believe, with all the technical French stuff,
La
technological
technologie.
advances
Les
that have
avancements
been made.
technologiques qui ont été faits.
Say again?
Les avancements technologiques qui ont été faits, oui.
Oui, les avancements technologiques qui ont été faits, et ce depuis les 2 dernières décennies,
These last two
ont changé
decades.
vraiment de façon drastique. Okay, have drastically changed. Um, I think if it's easier than it was
Yes.
for us to get in touch with the major companies.
Yes.
The visa thing is always going to be as hard, but for people to be noticed
Yes.
and looked at and you know, get people to pay attention to them, I think it's easier than it was back in the day through all the platforms that are now available.
I agree. So I like my answer, and I'm sure you'll agree with this because it touches back on something you said earlier. But I think like it's twofold. Like there needs to be awareness outside of Canada. Like people need to know what it's like to be a Canadian wrestler, and they need to know all the difficulties, and you need to know like it needs to be said, and someone can't just go like you hear it a lot go about Canadian wrestlers. Oh, why isn't he signed? Well, because he's in Canada, and people need to know that that's a thing. But also wrestlers in Canada need to know that that's a thing, and they can't just sit around and hope to get signed. Not that I'm accusing
No,
anyone
no,
of doing that.
that won't. Hey, I'm going to be very pretentious here.
Yeah,
If
please.
that was the case, if you could just wait around and be signed,
Someone says, "Am I right that it's
I
easier to
believe
get
I would have
Americans
been.
into Canada than for Canadians to get into America?" It absolutely is. Americans are just allowed to tell the border that they're going to wrestle in Canada, and that's no problem at all. The other way, no.
No,
Yep.
no,
Sorry. I
you're right.
You were saying?
No, but that's fine. I mean, but you were saying that like people can expect for like to be picked up by
Yeah.
just sitting around. If it comes out being pretentious, but if that was the case, I believe I'd have a job.
I completely agree.
And but I've said that on multiple occasions to many people. The only person that is And that's what I find in a way a little sad.
Thank
A
you for
lot
the
of
cheers.
people try to find excuses and reasons for their lack of success. What it all comes down to, with all the means, I mean, put the visa and the paper issue aside.
Right.
The only person you can ultimately blame for not being able to succeed is yourself.
Right. So I agree. So I yes, but I have a hard time blaming people for that, and I think luck is a big part of it.
Yeah,
You know this for having like seen pro wrestling in Quebec as a whole evolve over time. For the most part, and this is like the human condition. This is not specific to pro wrestling, but people are a product of their environment. It's the
yeah,
same. It's the same in boxing gyms. If you're the best boxer in your gym, because the level of skill in your gym is very very low, that's what you're gonna go. And in pro wrestling, like if you're the best in your very very small promotion in your very isolated area, then it's going to be very very difficult to push past that. So I think much like you said, and what you did for yourself in the early 2000s when you started to break out and wanted to go to the US and travel more, is you stopped comparing yourself to the people around you and instead compared yourself to an international level. And now that's the thing, like you're competing with everyone else who is where you are, and that is the internet. And it's not because you're doing well in some network that you shouldn't step up your game in terms of pro wrestling technically and look and all that, but also how you present yourself, like social media and
yeah.
everything you can do that is available to you now. You can't compare yourself because I'm the best in Northeast Quebec, then I'm the best. No, you are still part of the world of pro wrestling, and you need to
That's it.
situate yourself on that level.
And you can't rely on reputation or accolades from people in the business either. I mean, because ultimately you have to push your own self. And I'll be honest in saying, and I've told you that before, I haven't done it out of fear of failure because my last two tryouts were rather disastrous.
So you
And
say
that
that, but I think
not disastrous. I think
tryouts
that's
are
a very that's a,
hard.
might be a severe word.
Tryouts are so hard. I know so many people that feel like they did terrible, but then still like came out of it with positive results. And I know people who did fantastic and it didn't work out. Tryouts are like just impossible. And if there's anything like that I've learned about pro wrestling is that that whole machine is complex and an entire beast unto itself. And navigating that is just extremely difficult.
It takes very strong-minded people, and to a certain degree, on multiple facets of my life, I'm not all that strong.
Right.
I that's why I have a hard time. Like you won't hear a lot of people or many people say that I have a big ego because I truly don't because I don't have that all that much confidence in my means and my talent and whatnot. And you, of all people, have told me you've screamed at me over this. I mean that I should be way more confident, and I don't think people realize that. I think people because I have like this kind of presence, and I've been doing it for so long, people just assume that yeah, Frankie knows what he's doing. I always have my doubts.
Right.
I am never fully, truly satisfied.
Right. I
And to a degree, I think that's useful in the fact that I'll always strive to do better.
I think that's
But I'll
important.
always be
Um,
afraid to go the extra mile to try to get a job with the big companies because I don't want to be told, like, no.
this is something I've said. Like I say it all the time. I say it every interview I do. I say it when I teach wrestling because it's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard from my Taekwondo coach. And the wrestling, the belts in Taekwondo go as follows, right? You got white, yellow, green, blue, red, and then black.
Eh,
My coach always said that green is the hardest belt. It's the worst belt to be because that's when you think you know things. Blue gets better because you realize you don't. And a big part of the learning curve for pro wrestler, and I've thought this myself so many times, is, oh, pro wrestling is easy. You only have to do this one thing. Then realize I was dead wrong. And then go, oh, it's this other thing. I'm dead wrong. And then, oh, it's this other thing. And then slowly growing to realize that it's not. It's a mix of all. It's ever changing. It's ever evolving. And you will never be perfect at it. You can only keep growing.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. If you think you can't learn in this business, then you shouldn't be in it.
Completely agree.
That I think that's a vital part of the best professional wrestlers. Um, People will bash him. The purists will bash him. John Cena never just didn't do much, but you always saw him work extra hard and try new stuff. But he was dedicated and he was a workhorse.
The best. Just the best.
I love that guy. Seriously do.
Speaking of the best, you are. I've seen other interviews of yours, and you do a lot of interviews, and I can tell that much like pro wrestling, much like everything we're talking about, you try hard to be good at interviews, which is fantastic, and you
I
succeed
try to
very
be
well.
I try to be legitimate. I try to be
Right.
genuine.
Which, like, I thought, I'm glad. So I was nervous about this, which I know you wouldn't
What?
expect, because, like, I'm just gonna have it. But I've been really enjoying Twitch, and I hope that it, I've made a connection with many great people, and I hope I want it to work out. I want to be quote unquote successful at Twitch, which can be minimal
Yeah.
but still helpful. And like I
You were
know
afraid I
that,
was gonna fuck this all up.
no, I was afraid that I was gonna fuck this all up. I always am.
How?
For the most part, like, I knew. I'm glad I had you on as a first guest for this. By the way, thank you for the cheers. I'm glad I had you on as a first guest, because I know that outside of an interview setting, you and I can just talk for hours like this, and
Yeah,
right.
we could have talked about so much more than wrestling.
Yeah. So yeah, let's do it again next time then. Let's talk
Whenever
about
you want.
vapes
Curling.
and motivational posters on the wall, and space
Yeah,
bagger.
yeah, yeah. Did you see it?
Oh,
Conquer.
conquer. Very good. Conquer.
Conquer. The ultimate motivation in my world.
Right.
My ultimate all-time idol. It's
Which
the
which touches on everything we talked about with wrestling today. Conquer.
yeah.
So let's end it on
I
that
will.
note. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Plug? Where can people find Franky the Mobster?
Um, that's something you've always bitched about. I am not all that present on social media. I am
No.
on Twitter.
Yeah. So
Um,
tweet at him. Again, we talked about the importance of interacting with the audience and showing that you're grateful. So
but if
please,
anybody tweets at me,
yes,
I always answer
he
everyone.
will. Do it. Get at him. Ask him questions.
I like to talk on Twitter. I like to exchange with people on Twitter. I've had the occasional idiot that tries to bash me, and that makes it really entertaining.
I know. I know you love that. You love, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And so please come and bash me. We'll have a tremendous time, and I will conquer. See? I ended it well.
Right?
Conquer.
Okay. So,
I love you, and thank you everybody for who took the time, their very precious time to watch this and to hear me and listen to me ramble about my nonsense and everything. And thank you, Speedball Mike, Emile Bailey, Bergeron Laberge,
whatever
for
you would
being the
call him.
mediator through all this.
What's your Twitter? It's at Franky TM. Is that correct?
I believe so. I don't
Good.
even know.
I
I, think,
So you know what?
I believe it's Frankie TM. Yes.
I'm gonna post a link to my Discord in the chat, because I started a Discord server. I'm sure you have no idea what a Discord server is.
I have no idea.
Great, that's okay. I'll make sure everyone knows your information there. And then yeah,
I have a zip store. I have that.
a what?
What'd you call it?
I don't know. What did I say? Your info. Your
Oh, my info.
yeah. Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
I know
Someone
what
posted
info
your
is.
Twitter. Also, Lucas Simon, thank you for the follow. But yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us, and let's do this again sometime.
Anytime. Take
Love
it
you,
easy, brother.
Frankie. Take care.
Love you too, man. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.